He represents the mitten by way of Penn State. When Chapman gets to talking sports, but people can't wait. He represents the mitten. Be a true EMU, but cut Dennis in the fall, and his veins bleeding blue. They got respect around the state. When that light turns red, so don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the Fith chapter. Brian Chapman. Dennis Fithian. When they open their mouths, they spit in the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast, or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all captured in the Fith chapter. That's right. Welcome to the Fith chapter. I am Brian Chapman, and on the other side, no, there's no Dennis Fithian. Why is that? Because today it's going to be all me for episode 119. Want to thank everybody out there who's tuning in. As for today's show, Dennis is on vacation, so he is not going to be here for the start of the show, and he's likely not going to be here for any of the show. Also, little Brian, the intern, he's not going to be here for today's show either because he had some sort of work commitment or something like that. So it's going to be all me, and that's also going to be the case on Thursday. At least no Dennis on Thursday. We might see little Brian on Thursday. We'll have to check in and see what the situation is with him on Thursday. But this is going to be actually a period of 2 weeks where you're going to have atypical shows. No Dennis today, no Dennis on Thursday, no little Brian today, perhaps little Brian on Thursday. And then next week, Dennis is going to be back, but I'm going to be on vacation. So I won't be here on Tuesday. I won't be here on Thursday. We'll have to see what the situation is with little Brian. But definitely want to thank everybody who is tuning in for episode 119. And if you are worried about Dennis and you are worried about little Brian and saying, oh no, what's it going to be like with just Brian Chapman on for the entirety of the show? Remember what happened the last time little Brian and Dennis ditched me? That was a great day in Detroit sports history because that was the day of the NBA draft lottery. And on that day, the Pistons got the number 1 pick. So could something similar happen today? Could we find out that maybe Al Avila is getting fired or is just voluntarily stepping down? Could we find out that, I don't know, Jim Harbaugh is going to be stepping down? If you're a Michigan fan out there, if you are a Red Wings fan, are we going to find out that they are in advanced negotiations to trade for Connor McDavid or something crazy like that? I don't know, but I just know that the last time we didn't have Dennis and we didn't have little Brian, some great Detroit sports news occurred. But definitely thanks to all who are tuning in for 5 more fantastic chapters. Thanks to all who are watching via YouTube, watching via Facebook Live, and watching via Twitch. And also thanks to those who are listening to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Make sure you like, subscribe, and participate in the show by sending in your feedback. And I'll be taking a look at some of it throughout the course of the show. If you're wondering what I'm going to be talking about today, let's take a look at today's book. And there we go. As you can see in the second chapter, what should Major League Baseball and America do with Trevor Bauer? We touched on it a little bit last week, but the story has changed just a tad. So I'll tell you what's going on with that and what I think should happen. And it's a very tough situation because I can't recall a situation like this ever occurring before in pro sports. In the third chapter, the NBA Finals begins tonight. You got the Bambis against the Suns. Can Giannis return and lead his Bambis to a championship, or will they do what they've what I thought they were going to do a series or two ago, or certainly a series ago, get soft and crumple and perhaps get swept. In the fourth chapter, I mean, if you didn't see what happened over the weekend, you're not going to believe what happened to Ohio State and also what their 2021 recruiting class looks like. And I think it could lead to some really drastic results for the rest of the Big Ten football conference. And then in the fifth chapter, try to make you guys some money with the major wager. Will I be betting on the NBA Finals? Will I be betting on some baseball? Will I be betting on UFC? Am I going to be betting on Euro 2020/2021? Don't think so. But stay tuned for that, where I try to make you guys, and of course myself, a little bit of money. But you know what? Let's start off as usual with the first chapter. And that takes us to the Detroit Tigers. And they got off to this awful start at 9-24, but they're 33-20 since then. After their win yesterday against the Rangers, they're 3-1 this month. They had a record of one game above 500 last month and in May, and they even have me finally betting on them to win games, and that makes sense because betting on them to lose over the last couple of months has not been profitable. But when they were 15 games under 500, they were the laughingstock of baseball, and everybody wanted Al Avila fired. Things have changed. And for proof that things have changed, check out this this poll that I did on Twitter over the weekend. There you can see it. And I did the poll the day before a very important or the day of a very important anniversary on July 4th, 2019. I declared my independence from Al Avila and said that he needed to be fired. And if you remember, the very next day, July 5th, 2019, they gave him that multi-year extension. And I was distraught. I wanted him fired. And here they are giving him this big contract extension for a job, quote unquote, well done. And as of Sunday, they were 9 games below 500. Now they're 7 games below 500. And I asked people on Twitter what they thought about him today. And still the plurality want Al Avila fired at 47.2%, but certainly not the majority or the clear majority. I think when I did this poll a couple years ago, it was like 75 or 80% wanted him fired. You got 37.7% who said they are neutral on Al Avila, and then 15.1% said that they want to keep Avila because they trust the process. So things are certainly changing, at least when it comes to how people are viewing Al Avila based on the Tigers winning these games. You see that the Tigers are no longer the laughingstock of baseball. The Pirates, the Orioles, and certainly the Diamondbacks are the laughingstock of baseball. And as of yesterday, I believe that since their 9-24 start, they are owners of the 5th best record in all of baseball. And as they sit here today, 7 games below 500, they're 39-46. Fans are starting to buzz a little bit. They're starting, at least in some corners of the fan base, to act like slappies. And so I've got to ask this question for you, the Tigers fan out there, and that is, will the Tigers get above 500 at any point during the season before it ends? Are the Tigers going to get above 500 at any point during the remainder of the season? You can send in your feedback right now via YouTube, via Facebook, and via Twitch, and I will read it throughout the course of the show. But the one thing that is for certain is that in order to get to 8 games above 500 at any point between now and the end of the season, because if they're 7 games below 500 right now, they have to get to 8 games above 500 at some point, meaning they could win their next 8 games and get a game above 500. They could go 18-10 in their next 28 games to get to 1 game above 500. They could go, 38-30 in their next 68 games to get 8 games above 500. But they have to play 8 games above 500 between now and any point later on this year. And the fact that's clear, or the point that's clear, is that if they're going to do it, their best opportunity is right now. And by right now, I mean in the month of July and taking you through to August 1st. And that's because of the schedule. We know that they play the Rangers, who suck yesterday. They play the Rangers, who suck again today and tomorrow. So that's 2 more games against the Rangers, who are 19 games below 500. Then they have 8 games in a row with the Twins, who are 13 games below 500, because they have 4 games against the Twins before the All-Star break, then the All-Star break, then 4 games after the All-Star break against the Twins. So I've never heard of 8 consecutive games being played against the same team, unless you're talking about something that happened in the pandemic year last year. But this was a scheduled 8 consecutive games with the All-Star break in between for the Tigers and the Twins. After that, they have 4 more games against the Rangers. So you're talking about, what is that, 6 plus 8, 14. The Tigers' next 14 games are against the Twins and the Rangers, which is certainly an opportunity to make some moves toward 500. Then after that, they've got 3 games against the Royals, who are 14 games below 500 right now. Then 3 more against the Twins. You're going to get sick of the Twins this month, unless the Tigers are beating them up. And then 4 against the Orioles, who are 30 games below 500, and that takes them through August 1st. So that's why, if the Tigers are going to have a winning record at any point this year, from here until the end of the year, it's going to be now, because afterwards they're going to be playing a whole bunch of teams that have winning records, that are playoff contenders, and considering they're not going to be playing any good teams until after August 1st, the trade deadline will have passed. So these teams that are contenders will have plucked some of the best players from teams like the Rockies and the Diamondbacks and the Pirates and the Orioles and the Royals to get even better and make it even more difficult for the Tigers to win. This is their best chance, but I don't think they're going to do it. It's not like when we look at this Tigers team that's 1 game above 500 for the month of June, 1 game above 500 for the month of May, and is now 3-1 in the month of July. We're talking about some great team. And even if you are a great team, like let's say the Dodgers or the Padres or the Giants, all those NL West teams, or even let's say the White Sox or the Astros, it's difficult to go out there and play 16-8 baseball over a 24-game stretch, because from now until August 1st, they have 24 games against those rock gut teams. It's not a guarantee that even those great teams would go 16-8 in that stretch. And now we're talking about the potential of the Tigers doing something like that. This is their best chance to do so, but there's still a lot of people out there like me who are pleased that the Tigers are more entertaining and that they're winning more, but realize that they're not this good. And even if the Tigers do something like play 14-10 baseball over this 24-game stretch, which would certainly be an improvement, that would still put them 3 games below 500. 3 games below 500 after August 1st, and then they have a day off on the 2nd, and then on the August 3rd, they play the Boston Red Sox, and the schedule gets significantly more difficult. So I still don't trust this roster, even though they're finding ways to win games without a great roster. I mean, you got a guy like Jose Urena going today. Thankfully, it's against the Rangers, and the Rangers are not a good team. But how many? Urena has not been good lately. They're going to have to keep throwing him out there because Turnbull is injured, Boyd is injured, and Casey Mize is doing this whole 2 or 3 inning per start nonsense. And then toward the end of the month, they're going to flip that and have him extend back out. And while he's extending back out, they're going to have Tarek Skubal going 2 or 3 innings per start. So your 2 best starters are going to be pitching a lot less than they've been pitching over the last couple of months when the Tigers were making this quote-unquote surge. So for all those reasons, I think that you can expect to continue to see better baseball by the Tigers and more wins by the Tigers. But to play 8 games above 500 baseball between now and August 1st or any point in the year, I think is probably asking too much. Let's see what some of you guys are saying right now on the feedback on YouTube and Facebook and Twitch. A lot of people commenting on YouTube, like this from Paul. It's a day Penn State's joining the MAC conference, LOL. Well, let me just say this. Stay tuned to the 4th chapter because I got a little something to say about We Are Penn State. Also, from PB, Avila is looking like he can evaluate talent. Oh, this year he looks more like he can do it than he has in the past, because in the past he said, you know what, JD Martinez, why don't we trade him away for Sergio Alcantara, Jose King, and Dawel Lugo? That didn't work out. That was a bust of a trade coming around, both defensively and at the plate. And so that's making the Justin Verlander trade look better. Daz Cameron, he's still not doing what you want. I mean, that trade is still a bust. Franklin Perez, he gets hurt all the time. He's probably never going to make a major league start. He was supposed to be the best player in that trade. Jake Rogers is starting to look like a major leaguer, which is a positive, but not what you want considering he was in that Justin Verlander trade. And Daz Cameron, like if all you're getting for Justin Verlander, who had a year and plus left on his contract when the Tigers made that trade, if all you're getting for Justin Verlander is a decent catcher and like a 4th or 3rd caliber outfielder, that's a loss of a trade. Absolutely a loss of a trade. And you look at some of these other deals, whoever they acquired in the Ian Kinsler trade is never going to make it. The 2 guys that they acquired, I believe it was 2 for Justin Upton, never going to make it. All these guys not going to make it. But recently, Akil Baddoo, arguably the best hitter on their team, along with Jonathan Scope. Maybe you could even throw Eric Haas in there, but certainly one of the top 3 hitters on this team in the Rule 5 draft. That was a talent evaluation home run. You look at adding Robbie Grossman for a cheap amount of money. You know, he's sitting like around 220, which isn't great, but he's been key in plenty of wins this year. So I would take that as a win. And it certainly looks like he's improving, but I would still like him fired ASAP on the spot right away if I had my way. PB also says Hinch is the key. And yeah, AJ Hinch is the key because he's I mean, you look at this talent, you look at this roster, and you just don't see how they've been able to improve so much, but it is a difference in manager. Ron Gardenhire, you know, he was an old school guy and wasn't that great of a manager. Look back at what he did with the Twins teams that always lost in the playoffs, and they moved on from him, and they got a guy who's probably one of the best 5 managers in the game, a guy who's won a World Series, and surprise, the Tigers are better. How about this one from Jacob? We will be above 500 after next Saturday's game at the Twins. So not this Saturday, the Saturday after that. So the Tigers are 7 games below 500. They've got 6 games remaining before the All-Star break. If they win all 6 of those games, they'll be a game below 500 at the All-Star break. Then they have a double header, I believe, to open up the second half of the season against the Twins. So if they lose the first game and win the second, but if they split those 2 games, then they still be a game below 500. Then if they win that Saturday that you're talking about, Jacob, that will put them at 500. So if they win the first 2 games after the break and go on an 8-game winning streak between now and next Friday, then they'd be there. That's a possibility, but it's also not something I see. Because these teams are bad. They have losing records and they're not surging. But the Tigers, even though they're surging, or you could even say surging with air quotes, the Tigers are still not a good team. And it's just about, between now and August 1st, at least the way I see it, how much can they surge to get close to or above 500? I don't think they're going to be able to do enough. And certainly after that, it's lights out, because you start playing all these teams that are competing for playoff spots that have better rosters than the Twins and the Rangers and the Twins and the Rangers and the Royals and the Astros. And they got something on the line. The Tigers look like they're probably going to play those teams tougher, especially since they've been playing teams like the Indians, the White Sox, and the Astros tougher within the last couple of weeks. But they're not just going to keep on winning all these series. Even if you're a great team, you're going to lose series, from here on out, just like the Astros split with the Tigers and the White Sox lost the series to the Tigers. So I definitely appreciate the feedback coming in the second chapter, or in the first chapter on the Tigers. Let's turn the page now to the second chapter, and that takes us to it keeps us in the sport of baseball, but it takes us to a very uncomfortable subject, a very uncomfortable topic, and it is what America and what baseball should do with Trevor Bauer. And if you haven't been following this story, it's very disturbing, and it kind of goes into a dark part of society, which is the segment of the population that engages in rough and violent sex, consensual rough and violent sex, and where it go, what is deemed crossing the line. Because basically what happened, I'll give you a brief synopsis for those of you that are wondering, what is this Trevor Bauer situation? A couple of months ago, Trevor Bauer reached out to some woman on Instagram, and they started messaging each other, and I guess they agreed to have sex, and they wanted to have rough sex. And she said, I want you to choke me out, and I want you to hit me, and I want you to give me the pain. And these are comments revealed in text messages between the two of them. And so they met at Trevor Bauer's place, and then they had sex. And while they were having sex, he choked her. He used her hair to choke her, wrapped it around her throat, I believe, and choked her. In addition, he stuck his fingers down her throat to choke her. And then she passed out while they were having sex. And when she woke up from being passed out, he was still going at it. He was having sex with an unconscious body for a little bit. And then the next day, or within the next couple of weeks, they were corresponding, and Trevor Bauer showed some remorse and said, I might have gone a little bit too hard. And she said she liked that sex, but didn't want him putting his fingers down her throat the next time. And 3 weeks after the first event, after flirting and talking a little bit more, they agreed to meet up for a second consensual rough sex experience. And that time, he choked her with her hair again, and also was like beating her. Balled up his fist, was punching her in the face, was punching her in the vagina, punching her in the butt. And she seemed to be all right with it at the time, according to Trevor Bauer's side of things. And she did not immediately leave and run out. And for, I think it was the next day, she went to the hospital, or 2 days later, she went to the hospital and was diagnosed with a concussion. She also had a black eye, bruises, and welts and things like that. And Trevor Bauer said in text messages that next time he needs to be careful with where he punches her. But it wasn't until like 6 weeks after that she decided to pursue legal action against Trevor Bauer. So this isn't your run-of-the-mill sexual assault situation, or your run-of-the-mill physical abuse situation, because she was asking for it, and it was consensual to an extent, although it appears that Trevor Bauer may have gone too far. What Major League Baseball did was on Friday, they prevented him from starting on Sunday by putting him on the administrative leave list for 7 days. And obviously that runs out this coming Friday. They have the opportunity to put him on that list for another 7 days. And then they got to figure out what the heck they're supposed to do. Like, this is a nightmare scenario, because I don't think that Trevor Bauer can pitch for the Dodgers or for any Major League Baseball team for the rest of the season, given that all this is out there, even if you believe the text messages, which seems like ironclad proof that this was consensual and this is what she wanted. Even if perhaps Trevor Bauer, or likely Trevor Bauer, went too far, because I don't know all the parameters of rough and violent sex, but I would assume that black eyes and bruises are not a part of that. Additionally, while there is a segment of the population that's okay with that and partakes in that, there's a bigger segment of the population, I would assume, that is not cool with that and does not want to see someone on the mound representing Major League Baseball and the Los Angeles Dodgers who enjoys engaging in beating women during sex as long as it's consensual. Because a lot of people, including myself, say, I don't care if it's consensual. You don't go around beating up women and choking them and sticking your fingers down their throat and all that other stuff. And that's what Trevor Bauer was doing. And think about other victims of domestic abuse and sexual assault, how they would view seeing Trevor Bauer take the mound to represent Major League Baseball and the Dodgers. A lot of people like that would say, you know what? I don't want to go to any more baseball games if this is how baseball is going to treat a guy that does something like this. There might be a single mother out there who's got 2 or 3 kids who are into baseball, and if she sees either Trevor Bauer is on the mound or Trevor Bauer has not been banned by baseball, she might say, look, we're not going to any more baseball games. The kids are going to cry. They might be too young to understand, but she might say, look, either to herself or perhaps to her children later on, I was a victim of something like this, or I just don't appreciate the way that they are handling a situation like this. So I think that what Major League Baseball is probably going to have to do, especially because Trevor Bauer is only disputing that. I mean, the facts don't seem to be really much in dispute. Like he's pretty much admitting that he was beating and choking this woman, and his defense is it was consensual. I don't think baseball, for at least the remainder of this year, can have him on the mound. Here's a comment from PB. MLB is correct in reprimanding him. They have a brand to protect, and certainly they do have a brand to protect. And the issue is what's going to happen once the first and certainly the second 7-day leave ends. Because I can't imagine that Trevor Bauer is just going to say, hey, made a mistake. I can't go around beating and choking women, especially if they're going to go out afterwards and tell everybody. So I'll take the rest of the year off. I mean, even if he takes the rest of the year off because he's forced to or because he decides he needs to do so to get some sort of therapy, what's going to happen in 2022? Because, is he going to be permanently banned from baseball? If not, in 2022, when he returns, you're going to see a lot more vicious booing and name calling and comments from the stands and all that than you saw from the Houston Astros banging on trash cans. I went to the Astros versus Tigers game last Saturday, game 1, and I was banging hard on the seat in front of me to try to rattle Jose Altuve, but there was 3,000 fans there, and some other fans didn't really care. And I think a lot of fans, whether they want to admit it or not, are over that. It's a little bit more difficult to get over beating and choking a woman, even if it was consensual. Here's another one from Jacob on YouTube. He should be in jail. And here's the problem. I'm not a legal expert, but if Trevor Bauer invited this woman over for sex, and this is going to be standard sex, meaning gentle or certainly not violent, and they certainly weren't agreeing to the woman saying, I would like you to choke me, and I would like you to punch me, and I would like you to hit me, and I would like you to give me the pain, then it would be cut and dry, just like you're saying, Jacob, and he should be in jail, or he should be at least facing charges. But a large part of this, the majority of it, appears to be consensual. She can't say she didn't want to be choked. And additionally, when she was choked with her hair choking her out and then the fingers down her throat, she said afterwards that she liked it, came back for a second round, and the only stipulation was, please do not put your fingers down my throat. And according to what I've read, Trevor Bauer complied by not sticking his fingers down her throat. that said, Jacob, that doesn't mean that even if you agree to rough sex, you can't cross the line, because obviously he can't go around killing her. But like this even expands the whole conversation of like, what is too rough for consensual sex? Like, or if you're going to have rough sex, do you need to sign a contract? It's something that you don't want to have to talk. Like, I wish I didn't have to talk about this particular situation, but Trevor Bauer brought it out. Let's get to one more comment from Beth on Facebook. I saw the text. It appears to be consensual. He probably didn't want nothing to do with her, or may have looks like it cut off. But yeah, it was consensual. Not just because of what was in the text, but also based on the fact that after the first round, she went back 3 weeks later because she had such a great time with Trevor Bauer and she wanted to get choked out and have more rough sex. That's where the whole jail thing gets complicated. Because if it's consensual, me not being a legal expert, I wonder how much that does change Trevor Bauer's legal predicament. He can still go far or too far, even if it's consensual, but it's a very confusing situation. But that's in the legal system. In the court of public opinion, and in terms of managing Major League Baseball's brand, it does seem a heck of a lot easier to find some way within the parameters of the collective bargaining agreement to keep Trevor Bauer off the field. Because even if the players say, oh, you got a right to due process and all that stuff, I have to imagine that most players out there are saying, I don't want Trevor Bauer out there representing my union like this. We need to stand up against him, and we got to get him off the field. And it looks like here's the end of her message. Been looking for a payday. Perhaps she was looking for a payday. She paid a price if that's all she was looking for. Anyway, let's turn the page to the third chapter, and that's a topic that is a lot easier to stomach, and that is the NBA Finals. We've got Game 1 of the NBA Finals tonight. It's the Milwaukee Bambis, not the Bucks, the Milwaukee Bambis against the Phoenix Suns, and Game 1 is in Phoenix. The Suns have home court advantage. One big issue that everybody's wondering is whether Giannis is going to play. Let me just check my phone to see if I have any updates on him. Nope. No updates on him. So the last update we have on Giannis is that he's questionable for today's game. He was initially, I believe this morning, listed as doubtful, but then he was upgraded to questionable. So that would suggest a 50-50 chance of playing in Game 1. For those of you that are sports bettors out there, the Suns are a 6-point favorite. Let me see if that's been altered. Now it's down to 5.5. So the Suns are a 5.5-point favorite over the Bambis in Game 1. If you're wondering about the series, the Suns are a -195 favorite to win the series. The Suns are plus 800 to win in a sweep, plus 350 to win in 5, and the Bambis are plus 230 to win in a sweep. That's if you're interested in the sports betting aspect of it. But I certainly want to know from you guys out there who've been watching the NBA Finals, who do you have in this series and how many games, and what kind of effect do you think Giannis is going to have on his Bambis? Can he lead his Bambis to a championship over the Suns? Look, this is easy for me because I've been railing against the Bambis throughout the playoffs. I didn't think they were going to beat the Heat, but when it became apparent after the first couple of games that the Heat were not the same team that they were in the playoffs last year, they got the sweep, and you got to give the Bambis some credit. They had a couple of little bitty antlers during that series when they swept the Heat. Then that second series, yeah, they beat the mighty Brooklyn Nets, but the mighty Brooklyn Nets were not mighty. Kevin Durant played the whole series, but You had James Harden getting hurt in the first, 15, 20 seconds of that series, and then he didn't come back until, game 5 or game 6, and was playing on, 1.1 legs. Was not the same. And then Kyrie Irving got hurt, and I think it was game 4, and the Bambis ended up losing game 5, despite the fact that Irving was not there, and they needed to rally to win game 6 and 7. And that was a series win, but it was not a good look. Not a good look for the Bambis. And then they came out in the Eastern Conference Finals, and they have a lot more talent than the Atlanta Hawks, and they needed Trae Young to get hurt to win that series, because when Trae Young got hurt, it was I believe it was 2-1 Atlanta Hawks when he got hurt in game 4, and the Hawks were winning by 3 points late in the third quarter. Then Chris Middleton got hot with Trae Young out with the injury, and they were able to win game 4. And then in game 5, they got blown out. I think that's what took place. But anyway, they needed 6 games, or maybe it was game 3 when Trae Young got hurt. Either way, they needed 6 games to beat an Atlanta Hawks team that only had a healthy Trae Young for the first couple of games. They just keep on playing soft Bambi basketball. And meanwhile, the Suns, while they've been the beneficiary of some injuries to their opponents as well, like LeBron James less than 100%, and then Anthony Davis missing time, like no Jamal Murray in the second round, like Kawhi Leonard missing missing the entire series in the Western Conference Finals. They were the beneficiary of some banged up teams as well. The Suns are the healthier team. And if Giannis was healthy, I would still pick the Suns to beat the Bambis. It would just be in a different number of games. I'm going to go with the Phoenix Suns. I was originally going to say the Suns in 5. Break out the brooms. I've got Suns in 4 games. They're going to get the sweep against the Milwaukee Bambis. They have the healthier team. They've got home court advantage. Think about this. They've also had more time to rest for their series, because the Bambis come into this game with just 2 days off, which is plenty for an NBA team. But the Suns had even more time to rest up if they had any nicks and dings and things like that. The Suns have a better coach. And when Giannis comes back, especially for road games, he's going to come back as a rattled choke artist at the free throw line. Like, I've never seen a guy, especially a 2-time MVP, get rattled because the opposing fans aren't shouting slurs at him, aren't cursing him out. The opposing fans aren't talking about his relatives, his child or his mama or something like that. Giannis Antetokounmpo gets legitimately rattled when opposing fans count to 13. Think about how soft you got to be to get rattled because you hear fans counting to 13 quicker than it takes to actually get to 13 seconds. But he does get rattled, and you know that he gets rattled because he airballs free throws, and his home road splits when it comes to the free throw line are so black and white. I believe that there was one game in the Atlanta series when those fans would go 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 13, where he was 4 of 14 from the free throw line. But you look at his numbers in home games, and he's shooting like 67, 70%, something like that. You can't ride a guy like that to an NBA championship when folks counting numbers is going to rattle you because he's afraid of getting a 10-second violation. Also, you got all these NBA analysts out there calling the Bambi stupid. Charles Barkley, I remember during the Nets series, was saying, let me tell you something. Okay, Ernie, they're going to win the championship, but they got to be the dumbest team in the whole NBA playoffs. Like, that's not something you typically associate with an NBA champion. And I'm not going to associate that with an NBA champion. I'm going to associate that with an NBA runner-up because they've already made it this far, so they're going to at least be the runner-up, and that's that. And they're done winning games this year. The Bambis are getting swept by the Suns. I've got the I understand that Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday were able to really take off in those final two games of the series against the Hawks with Giannis out and with Trae Young either out or less than 100%, and they seem to play fine in those games. But whether he's there or not, the Phoenix Suns are going to be the best team that the Bambis have played so far. Because of the fact that they're 100% healthy, I think that you could certainly say that a 100% Brooklyn Nets team is a better team than the Phoenix Suns, but they weren't 100% for that series. It looks like the Suns are 100% going into this series. We don't know what's going to happen from game to game, but assuming the injury situation doesn't change, or if it does change, it means that Giannis gets a little bit healthier. He's never going to be 100% in this series. And he's going to lose some explosiveness because of that hyperextended knee. This is going to be too much of a task for the Bambis to win this series and even win one game. Suns in 4. All right, let's turn the page now to the 4th chapter. And that takes us to college football. We did have, if you remember, a comment. I think it came in on YouTube cracking a joke about Penn State. But as we turn the page to the 4th chapter, I can say this. The last 72 hours have been great for my Penn State Nittany Lions on the recruiting trail. And that's because on Sunday, Penn State got a 4-star defensive lineman to commit. And then later in that day, they got another 4-star defensive lineman to commit. And then later on in the day at 8 p.m. on Sunday, they got another 4-star defensive lineman to commit. And then they took a day off. And then earlier today, they got a 4-star running back to commit. I believe he's the number 2 player in the state of Pennsylvania. And according to 24/7 Sports, the highest ranked running back commit to Penn State University since Miles Sanders, who was a 5-star. Now, why am I bringing them up? Even though I know most, if not all of you, are not Penn State fans, it's because despite all that success on the recruiting trail, with 4-star commits in a span of less than 72 hours, it was difficult for me to get too excited about what my team had hauled in because of the Deep South Buckeyes. Did you see what they did on Sunday, on the same day that my Nittany Lions are bringing in all these 4-star defensive lineman recruits? They got themselves a 5-star defensive lineman recruit, but not for the class of 2022, for the class of 2021. I don't know why this guy was taking so long to make his commitment, but his name is let me get the name right. JT Tuimoloau. He's from Eastside Catholic in Sammamish, Washington. And he's not just a 5-star defensive lineman. He is, according to 24/7 Sports, the number 1 overall recruit in the country. So we already knew Ohio State had a great recruiting class, but this is for the 2021 recruiting class, meaning he's going to be on campus this fall. He's going to be on campus in Columbus in a couple of weeks, and he adds to their already strong recruiting class. And just how strong was the recruiting class? It was not just ranked number 1 in the country by 24/7 Sports. Let me put this up on the screen so everybody can see what I'm talking about when I break down just how great this Ohio State recruiting class is. Unfortunately, here we go. Here are the top football recruits according to 24/7 Sports for the class of 2021. As you can see, number 1 is JT Tuimoloau from Ohio State. And I'm not going to go through the names. I'm just going to go through the schools, okay? The number 2 player in the country went to USC. The number 3 player in the country went to Miami. Don't see a trend here, but just wait. Number 4 player went to Alabama. Still no trend. Number 5 player, Ohio State. Number 6 player, Ohio State. Number 7 player, Oklahoma. Number 8 player, Ohio State. Number 9 player, Alabama. And the number 10 player in the country, Ohio State. So count that out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players in the top 10. Half of the top 10 players in the country for the class of 2021 are going to the Deep South of Columbus to play for the Deep South Buckeyes. That's for this coming fall. Additionally, I just told you about how great Penn State's recruiting class is starting to shape up. And according to 24/7 Sports, as you can see in just a second, Penn State's got a great class coming in for the year 2022. Number 3 in the country with 18 commits, 10 4-star recruits. Whereas Michigan, number 10, just ahead of Rutgers. Whereas Michigan State's going to take a while, 31. But who's ahead of Penn State? Alabama and Clemson? No, there's Alabama right there. There's Clemson at number 24. Alabama at 15. Number 2 is Notre Dame. And number 1, the Deep South Buckeyes. They already have 4 or 5-star recruits for the class of 2022. And so I say all that to ask, like, with all this dominance on the recruiting trail, the recruits they've had in years past, the recruits that they have coming in this year, half of the top 10 recruits in the country, and what they're building for this coming year, are they set to win the next 3 Big Ten titles? Like, it's one thing to go year to year and say, oh, yeah, Ohio State, unfortunately, they're the favorites. But are we at a point now where, like, we can look 2-3 years in a row or into the future and say Ohio State's just going to keep on winning all of these Big Ten titles? I hope the answer is no. But if there was like a wager that I could put down, I wouldn't like it. But if somebody said, gun to your mouth, you have to pick, is Ohio State going to win the next 3 Big Ten titles in football or not? I would say, yeah. I mean, time after time, us non-Ohio State fans keep thinking, or at least keep hoping, that when some, star quarterback leaves or some great coach leaves, that Ohio State's going to fall back to the pack. But the opposite has happened. Jim Tressel led them to a championship, and then to a championship game after that. They had the cheating scandal, and they dropped back for a year with Luke Fickell. But then the year after that, Urban Meyer came in and they ran the table, went undefeated in his first year. And then in the first year of the CFP, they won the championship. And they were dominating the Big Ten every single year. Then he leaves, and people were saying, oh, you can't trust Ryan Day. And throughout the Urban Meyer era, people were saying, oh, they're getting all these new quarterbacks, they're not going to pan out. And that didn't turn out well. Well, with Ryan Day in his first year, they got to the college football playoff. They beat Clemson and got to the championship game. And now you see Ryan Day is not slipping on the recruiting trail either. He appears to be even better than Jim Tressel and better than Urban Meyer on the recruiting trail. Urban Meyer never, matter of fact, I don't even think Nick Saban has ever had a recruiting class where he got 5 out of the top 10 recruits in the country, whether you're looking at Rivals or 24/7 Sports or any of these other, ESPN or any other recruiting lists. I don't know that any recruiting class has ever gotten half of the top 10 players in the country. And he's going to back that up with another class. It looks like it's going to be in the top 3, maybe number 1, and listed as number 1 overall. Like, if he's going to continue to do such a great job coaching, unfortunately, and get all of these great players and out-recruit Alabama, run circles around Clemson on the recruiting trail, like, it's hard for me to get that excited about my Penn State recruiting class because, like, all the players that he's getting are better. So, yeah, unfortunately, I think that is going to be the case. And it's sad and it sucks. I think the Buckeyes are probably going to win the next 3 Big Ten championships based on what they're doing on the recruiting trail, the job that Ryan Day did in his first full year as head coach, and how there hasn't been a team in the Big Ten that looks like it can rival it. It really sucks. Here's a comment from PB. I wonder how the new rules with the NCAA will affect these super teams. And that's one thing I wonder as well. Like, if you're the number 10 player in the country, most of the time, if you pick a school, you're going to be the best recruit in that class. But this year, the 10th best player in the country is going to be the 5th best recruit in Ohio State's class. And he, in terms of making some money via name, image, and likeness, he's just like another one of the guys. And, there's only so many people, only so many Buckeyes that are going to be able to command $100,000 name, image, and likeness deals or $10,000 name, image, and likeness deals because they've got so many other star players and NFL-bound players on the team. So maybe that 10th best player on the team would be able to make more money had he chosen a school like Iowa, not a bad Big Ten school, an above-average Big Ten football school, or gone to Mel Tucker's program and become the face of the defense as a true freshman. I think that it's worth mentioning that the name, image, and likeness can do that. But at the same time, there's probably going to be players out there saying, I'm a top 10 recruit in the country, and if I play the way I know I can play, I'm going to make a heck of a lot more money as part of an undefeated or one-loss Buckeye team than I am as part of a 4 or 5-loss Iowa team. So, yeah, I hope that the name, image, and likeness stuff is going to help spread out some of the talent, but that's going to take time. That's absolutely going to take time. It's certainly not going to happen right away. And the number one recruit in the country who made his decision 2 days ago didn't seem to have too much of an issue going to Ohio State. And he was obviously choosing other great programs too, like USC and Alabama and I forget who else. But yeah, it's demoralizing. It's demoralizing. And hopefully we can put an end to this soon. Penn State is who I'm hoping for, but anybody but Ohio State. Anybody but Ohio State. All right, let's turn the page now to the fifth chapter, and that takes us to the major wager, where I will try to win you guys some money for some of the games going on tonight or any game taking place between now and Thursday. Obviously, we've got legal mobile sports betting that you can do on your phone, and of course, that's in the state of Michigan. You can also go down to the casinos and bet in person. Just a brief recap on Thursday. I went with an NBA prop bet. I went with John Collins over 15.5 points for the Hawks against the Bambis, and he finished with 19 points. So that was a nice big win for me and a nice big win for everybody out there that decided to trust me with sports betting advice. Going with John Collins over those 15.5 points. Tonight, I'm going with a baseball game. And it's already underway. Let me see what the update is on this game. Wonder if there's a rain delay. Let me see if I can check on that. While I check to see if there's some sort of rain delay. The game is the Mets versus the Brewers. And if you follow me on Twitter, you already know what I picked. And yes, there is a rain delay. I see right now on ESPN that's saying rain delay in the top of the first inning. And that's important because now if you didn't check my Twitter, there's still an opportunity for you to bet the same game that I bet and make some money or lose some money. But this is not going to lose, I think. And you can place your bet to win just like me. So here's what we got. It's the Brewers versus the Mets tonight. And the Mets are the home team against the Brewers. And this is very key, and this could scare some folks away. The Mets have Jacob deGrom going on the mound, but I still like the Brewers. But I'm not taking the Brewers to win. I think they could win this game. The Brewers have been red hot if you haven't been following. Their record for the season is 51-35, and I think they recently had a 9-game winning streak snapped. In their last 10 games, they're 8-2. So yeah, they've lost 2 in a row, but before that, they won 9 games in a row. They're basically one of the hottest teams in baseball. So it's one of the hottest teams in baseball going up against like one of the best pitchers of all time in Jacob deGrom and what he's doing this season. What I'm doing is not picking the Brewers to win, even though I think they can win, given that they've won so many games recently. I'm picking the Brewers plus 1.5 runs. I'm picking them on the run line. What does that mean? That means if the Brewers win the game, you win the bet, or if the Brewers lose the game by up to 1 run, you win the bet. This is, I think, a smart bet because not only have the Brewers been winning, but they're a pretty high-scoring team. So if they get a run or two off of Jacob deGrom, that'd be huge. Additionally, the Mets are a low-scoring team. And so I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. And if it's a low-scoring game and you got the Brewers putting up 2 runs, that could be enough to win against a Mets team that doesn't have a heck of a lot of offense. And if the final score is 3-2 Mets, you're cashing in. So that's what I like for the major wager. I like Brewers plus 1.5. And if you're worried about giving up too much juice on that, as of right now, I believe, here we go. The Brewers plus 1.5 is at plus 105. So they're an underdog to stay within 1 run. I would take that run, even though Jacob deGrom is on the opposite side. All right, definitely want to thank you guys for tuning in to episode number 119. If you liked episode 119, episode 120 is going to be very similar because, once again, no Dennis Fithian on Thursday. He's still going to be on vacation. And Little Brian might be back. Intern Little Brian might be back, might not. But no matter what, you're going to have me. And that's most important. Until Thursday, you guys have a good one and enjoy the NBA playoffs. I'm Brian Chapman for the Fifth Chapter.
He represents the mitten by way of Penn State. When Chapman gets to talking sports, the people can't wait. He represents the mitten. Be a true EMU, but cut Dennis in the fall, and his veins bleeding blue. They got respect around the state. When that light turns red, so don't sleep on these stews. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the Fifth Chapter. Brian Chapman, Dennis Fithian. When they open their mouths, they spitting the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all captured in the Fifth Chapter.